What if I told you that the most revolutionary commercial aircraft of the 21st century wasn't born in a moment of clarity, but out of corporate chaos, global crisis, and a desperate need for reinvention? That its wings were shaped not in a wind tunnel, but by algorithms. And that it nearly broke Boeing before it ever flew. This is the untold story of the Boeing 787 Dreamliner. A machine designed to change how we fly, how we build, and how we compute. A plane built by code. A dream made of carbon fiber and mathematics. Let's rewind. For decades, Boeing reigned supreme in the skies. Their 747 jumbo jet, introduced in 1970, was an icon. Towering, majestic, and built to carry over 400 passengers across oceans, it defined the golden age of long-haul air travel. At the heart of its success was the hub-and-spoke model. Airlines flew giant jets between a few mega airports like Heathrow, JFK, or Narita. Then, smaller planes connected passengers to final destinations. It was cost-effective, efficient for airlines, but not exactly passenger-friendly. Then came the deregulation of the airline industry in 1978. Suddenly, airlines had more freedom. Competition exploded. Prices fell. And so did customer patience. Travelers didn't want 4-hour layovers anymore. They wanted direct routes. Less waiting. More flying. Boeing noticed the shift. So did Airbus. In the early 2000s, Airbus made a bold move. They launched the A380, an enormous, 4-engine aircraft that could carry over 800 passengers. It was designed to dethrone the 747 and rule the world's biggest routes. Boeing's response? First, they tried to stretch the 747 into a larger variant, the 747X. More seats, more range, same philosophy. But the market was already evolving. Congestion at major hubs was worsening. Oil prices were climbing. And in the background, the internet was quietly giving power back to the traveler. By the late 1990s, websites like Expedia and Orbitz were changing how people booked flights. Travelers could now choose based on price, time, and number of stops. And increasingly, they chose routes with fewer layovers. Meanwhile, Boeing launched a radical idea, the Sonic Cruiser. A futuristic, high subsonic aircraft that would fly just below the speed of sound. Shave hours off transatlantic flights. Business travelers would pay a premium, Boeing believed, for speed. The design looked stunning. Forward-swept wings. Long, sleek fuselage. And promised speeds 15% faster than anything else flying. But speed came at a cost. Environmentalists slammed the design for high emissions. European regulators criticized Boeing publicly. Airlines, already under pressure from rising fuel prices, weren't thrilled either. Then came the September 11th attacks. Air travel collapsed. The global airline industry hemorrhaged over $7 billion in losses. Jet fuel prices surged. The mood turned from expansion to survival. Airlines weren't looking for faster planes anymore. They wanted fuel-efficient ones. So Boeing pivoted. In December 2002, Boeing canceled the Sonic Cruiser. But they didn't toss the tech. Instead, they redirected the aerodynamic advances into something new, a more efficient, long-range, mid-sized aircraft. Internally, it was known as the 7E7. Later, it would be named the Dreamliner. The vision was simple. A plane that used 20% less fuel. That could fly directly between city pairs previously unreachable. That offered a better cabin experience, higher humidity, lower altitude pressurization, larger windows, and a quieter ride. To make it happen, Boeing needed to rethink not just design, but materials. Enter composites. Traditional aircraft are built from aluminum. Strong, light, and familiar. But composites, specifically carbon fiber reinforced polymers, promised even better performance. Composites are created by embedding carbon fibers into a resin matrix. The result is incredibly strong, fatigue-resistant, and up to 70% lighter than steel. They also don't corrode. And they can be molded into complex shapes that metal can't replicate. Boeing went all in. The Dreamliner would be the first major commercial aircraft made mostly from composites. Not just a few parts here and there, but entire fuselage sections, wings, doors, and interior structures. Composites made up 50% of the 787's total weight, and an astonishing 80% of its volume. By comparison, the Boeing 777, its predecessor, used only around 12% composites by weight. This was unprecedented. But using composites at this scale wasn't as simple as swapping materials. Metals behave consistently. They're isotropic, meaning their properties are the same in every direction. You can design a metal part knowing exactly how it will perform under stress. Composites are different. Their strength depends on fiber orientation, layering, and curing. They're anisotropic. Twist them one way, they're stiff. Twist them another, they might bend. That makes design exponentially more complex. Early in the process, Boeing made a mistake. They assumed composites would behave like metal. Internally, engineers joked that they were designing with black aluminum. The result? Over-engineered components. Heavier than expected. The 787's first wings were too heavy to meet fuel targets. Airlines weren't happy. Boeing faced penalties for every kilogram above target weight. Something had to change. Traditionally, wings were designed using wind tunnel models. For the 767, Boeing had built and tested 77 different wing configurations. That's a lot of foam and wind tunnel time. For the 787, just 11. Why? Because they relied on something more powerful than air, computation. By the 2000s, Boeing was leveraging a growing toolset called computational fluid dynamics, or CFD. Instead of building physical models, engineers simulated airflow digitally. They could analyze lift, drag, turbulence, and pressure gradients in a virtual environment. But they didn't stop at simulation. They used optimization algorithms to iteratively refine the design. Variables like wing curvature, span, material thickness, and fiber orientation could all be adjusted. The computer then evaluated how each tweak affected performance metrics, like lift-to-drag ratio, fuel burn, or weight. One of the mathematical breakthroughs enabling this was the adjoint method, developed by Anthony Jameson. It allowed designers to calculate how sensitive a performance metric was to changes in a parameter, without having to rerun the entire simulation for each tweak. This saved enormous amounts of time and computational power. Joris Poort, one of Boeing's lead engineers, described how they stitched together compute power from different Boeing divisions just to run the optimization models. They did it over weekends, because nobody believed it would work. But it did. The new wing was lighter, thinner, more flexible, and more efficient. The 787's wingtips can flex upwards by over 3 meters during takeoff, 12% of the wing's span. That flexibility helps reduce drag and smooth out turbulence. It wasn't just the wings. Direct optimization and advanced simulation tools were used across the aircraft's structure, from the fuselage frame to the engine nacelles. The result? A plane that met its promise. But innovation wasn't limited to the engineering office. Boeing tried something radical with manufacturing too. Instead of building everything in the US, they outsourced roughly 70 to 80% of production globally. Fuselage sections came from Italy, wings from Japan, electrical systems from France, final assembly in Washington or South Carolina. The goal was to lower costs and leverage global expertise. But it created one of the most complex supply chains in aviation history. And it backfired. Parts arrived late. Some didn't fit. Quality issues surfaced. Boeing had to send teams around the world to troubleshoot suppliers. The result? Delays. The 787 was supposed to fly in 2007. It first took off in late 2009. The first commercial delivery didn't happen until 2011. Then came the battery crisis. In 2013, multiple incidents involving the 787's lithium-ion batteries catching fire grounded the fleet. The FAA stepped in. Investigations followed. Boeing redesigned the battery systems, added fireproof containment boxes, and resumed flights. Through it all, airlines still placed orders. Because the Dreamliner delivered what it promised. It used 20% less fuel than previous jets in its class. It opened new routes, direct flights between cities like Austin and London, or Tokyo and Boston. It offered a quieter, more comfortable ride. And it could fly long haul with fewer passengers, making new routes economically viable. By 2024, Boeing had delivered over 1,100 Dreamliners to 85 airlines. The aircraft had logged over 3 million flights and carried more than 300 million passengers. It wasn't just a plane. It was a strategy. It shifted the industry away from mega hubs toward direct, point-to-point travel. It proved that computation could drive design. That carbon fiber could replace metal. And that optimization could beat trial and error. Today, every major aircraft in development borrows lessons from the 787, whether in materials, aerodynamics, or digital engineering workflows. Boeing stumbled. But in the process, they built something extraordinary. The 787 Dreamliner isn't just a beautiful aircraft. It's a monument to the intersection of mathematics, material science, and modern manufacturing. It's proof that computation is no longer just a tool, it's a co-designer. It's the jet that algorithms built. And it redefined how we fly.